All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's 4:45, and we will now call our meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for the Johnson County Fiscal Court for March 11th, 2019. If we would all stand, please, and Commissioner Gerald will lead us in the pledge this afternoon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we actually get started in our agenda with the business items, I had a few announcements that I wanted to mention. First of all, a couple congratulations announcements. One to Commissioner Adams, who was just elected to the Kentucky Association of Counties Board of Directors for Commissioners and Magistrates. So we appreciate her service, and thank you for representing Johnson County well. So congratulations on that. Also, recently as well, the Johnson Central boys basketball team, they were obviously the 15th region champs. A little bit of a rough road when they got to Lexington. Nevertheless, they represented the county well, so we want to congratulate them also. Another announcement is we need to send out a tremendous amount of thank yous. This is the first meeting we've had since we had our flood disaster a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of thank yous that need to go out for that. Emergency management obviously did an extremely good job of keeping everyone in the loop. They did a good job, obviously, of trying to provide public safety. We were fortunate, as we all know, we did not have any loss of life or really no reported injuries as far as that goes. So the emergency management did a very good job. The Johnson County Road Department had their hands full as well, trying to get roads open as quickly as possible for the citizens, as well as for for the school systems to be able to run their buses and resume. And I think the schools were only out one day, which is that Monday following. So that's a pretty good tribute to the road department for being able to get those roads back open. And State Highway obviously did a good job getting theirs open as well. Our first responders need a big thank you also. Volunteer fire departments in the county stepped up and saved a lot of lives that night. Had several rescues that evening, on that Saturday evening, and so they certainly deserve a big thank you as well. And then they went out and helped with individual assessments afterwards from the disaster. With keeping with our first responders, obviously our sheriff's department was able to assist also in that. So a big thank you to all those folks during the disaster. And with that, it's ongoing, the assessment process and determining how we move forward with the disaster. We've been announcing and trying to communicate to the public as much as we can that if they had individual damage, then that needs to be reported. In the event that there is a federal declaration, that information needs to be reported to emergency management. So again, call them at 789-2260 to report that. The road department is on the public assistance or public assessment side is still assessing damages. The list is extensive. It's all over the county. And I know that there's still a lot of folks who are experiencing clogged culverts and things like that. Be assured that it's not that we don't intend to address those situations. It's the fact that we just need time and resources to get to them. There's a lot of areas out there we're experiencing bankment failures on the roads, and so obviously you have to kind of prioritize when you have limited resources. But nevertheless, they are getting to them, so be rest assured that those will be addressed. So those are the announcements that I had for this evening. We'll move on to item 3 of the agenda, and that is the approval of the minutes from our regularly called meeting on February the 11th. If you hadn't hopefully had an opportunity to review those, and if you have, we would entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A motion made by Commissioner Salyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We also have approval to pay the bills. You have both the claims sheets for all funds there, general, jail, road and bridge, and LGEA in your packet, as well as the additional claims that have come in since the report was generated. So we would entertain a motion to approve both the monthly bills and the claims, as well as the additional claims.
I make a motion we pay the approval of the monthly bills.
Motion by Commissioner Gerald. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Salyers. Any discussion on any of the claims or the monthly report? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on the agenda is transfers. We have our usual monthly transfer related to the jail of $40,000 from the general fund to the jail fund. Just a note in your packet, you will see that there's an additional sheet in there with some additional appropriation transfers. Those are associated with accounts that we have to have positive balances in all of our line item accounts in our budget. And so from time to time, we have to transfer between line items in order to make sure those balances stay positive. And so this is a list of some of those transfers that need to be made. This is not monetary. This is just strictly accounting. We're just moving those in, from one line item to the other to make sure we always maintain a positive balance in all line items as we are required to do. So with your approval, consideration for approval of transfers for the jail, we would also ask that you approve those appropriations transfers on those other accounts to keep those account balances, or the line item balances positive.
I make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Adams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. Any other questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You have the clerk's report next for fourth quarter 2018. Just be reminded that the clerk operates on a calendar year, whereas the fiscal court obviously operates on a fiscal year ending June 30, and so this would be their fourth quarter 2018 report. If there's no questions on that report, we entertain a motion to approve it as well.
Make a motion we approve the report.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Gerald. Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is an approval for professional accounting services. This is related to, as you know, Ms. Stambo retired as treasurer, and Ms. Picklesheimer is now serving as an interim role until June 30, at which point the term ends, and then we would seek appointment, obviously, on a termed basis at that point. But as part of our discussions of how we manage as efficiently as we can, we are looking at the possibility, because there was a Ms. Picklesheimer served as finance officer prior to being treasurer, and so what we're looking at is using professional accounting services for all of our payroll, which would include all of our retirement deposits, payroll, actually payroll checks, taxes, that type thing. In the hopes that some of the additional accounting services that we would use, that we might be able to obtain those on a part-time basis, which will save the county money in the long run of not having to have potentially a full-time finance officer in place. So you have a proposal in your packet that's been presented. This is a group. The Sumter CPA group is someone that the county has used in years past for isolated uses with assistance they provided, and someone that we're very familiar with. Ms. Picklesheimer's worked with them quite a bit, and but you have the proposal in front of you. I think the proposal is extremely reasonable to do all of our payroll for $550 a month, including all of our retirement deposits and payroll taxes, is a very favorable rate to provide that service. And so again, the goal is that with respect to the finance officer, is that if we contract out the payroll services, then we could possibly utilize part-time going forward in the finance officer position, which would save the county several $1,000s a year by doing so. Because obviously, as we all know, the fringes and retirement is significant per employee. So the proposal is there for your consideration, and if it's something that you are willing to.
So this is really not, as far as removing anyone, we just a situation with Betty moving from that left a vacancy, which left opportunity
Exactly.
to capitalize on some savings, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Just want to make sure that's.
Yeah, when Betty moved to the treasurer position, in theory, we have a vacancy in the
Right.
finance officer's position. And so what we're looking at is by contracting out the payroll, that we might be able to fill the finance officer's position with a part-time position to provide those additional services, which would save obviously significant dollars for the county. And again, it also can create some continuity for us too, in the event that there should be unexpected illness in the person who does the payroll, and not available to actually perform that service. Obviously, if we're contracting out, and they have additional resources to be able to make sure that payroll is always provided. It doesn't change anything as far as our process. The payroll checks will still be generated in the same manner in which they're generated now. No change there whatsoever.
Is this, just one last question.
Sure.
Is this going into a contract, or is this something like, say 3 months in, we're like, hey, this ain't working,
Right.
Is this something you're locked into, my month, is this a contract, is it? Now, it might be here, I just didn't read all the way, I didn't
No,
see it.
it's not. It does not have any
Just
type
a
of.
monthly, $550?
Okay. Yep. Yes, sir. Because it may not work for them.
That's,
That's true. They may come back and say, this isn't working for us. So yes, it's not anything that has any kind of a contract with it. It is a contracted service, but it's not a
Right.
contract. Any other questions or discussion on that? I know it's a little bit different than normal processes, but in the end, Betty and I have talked a lot about this, and we believe in the end it's a good process for the county, but also could generate significant savings for us.
It's gonna save money. I make a motion that
We have a motion by Commissioner Shire to approve the hiring of the CPA firm for payroll services. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The next item on the agenda is approval to change the employment status of two employees. That would be Betty Picklesheimer, who is serving as interim treasurer, and Philip Keaton is serving as road supervisor. I'm requesting your consideration for changing their employment status from exempt to non-exempt, which essentially means if they have any overtime, that they would be compensated for that overtime rather than being accumulating comp time for anything that they would work over. I've talked to both of them about this, and it's both of them their preference that we do this. From a county's perspective, they're eventually going to take the time one way or the other, if they're taking on comp time or if they're compensated. But when you have valuable employees, you want them on the job if the job is there to be done. And so this change in employee status would allow them to continue to do that. So I would ask for your consideration in changing those employment statuses on both those individuals.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Gerald, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. McClure, emergency management report. I know it's been a little bit active here.
I think you covered a lot of that, Judge, in your announcement, but yeah, the event was pretty significant for a couple of reasons. We all know that the river level was already up considerably, and then we had all the flash flooding in the county. So naturally, therefore, when it got to Paint Creek, of course, wasn't nowhere for it to go. And of course, that's when we experienced the river flooding, especially in the west end of town. But this was one occasion where we had individual damages, on quite a few places within the city limits. And flash flooding within the city limits is kind of unusual. We don't have too much of that to deal with. So anyway, it was kind of a little different scenario this time around. But when the event started, I would say for the next 6 hours after the event started, we started getting reports of the flash flooding in the county. I would say my dispatch center probably took better than 150 911 calls. When I got to the office that evening, I had 2 dispatchers. Another one just showed up. I didn't even call him, but he knew that we was having a bad event, so he come in. So we had 3 dispatchers on duty the rest of the night. And, and you know, I'm the same way. I forget about my dispatchers, but they're first responders too. And, you know, they're the ones that make that initial contact, you know, with the individual that has an emergency. And I know they physically don't go out and assist, but just taking that 911 call and the amount that we had that evening, those dispatchers done an excellent job. And but they was busy, to say the least, you know. Like the judge said, volunteer fire departments, city department was out, utilities, everybody, sheriff's department, city police. I can't do my job without the help of all these organizations. And I've told you before, I've never had the first one to turn me down. You know, I mean, they're just always willing to help. But like the judge said, we're working through the process with the damage assessment, and you know, it just takes a little time.
For clarity, the county obviously declared an emergency that night. The state then declared an emergency about 2 days later, 2 to 3 days later. The federal level has not declared an emergency for what happened yet.
Correct.
We are certainly hopeful that they will, because that provides and opens up opportunity for both public and private damages that were sustained during that disaster. But to date, the federal level has not declared an emergency, so we're certainly...
Once the numbers get in to Frankfurt, and Kentucky Emergency Management will submit those numbers to the governor, then at that point, if the numbers are significant enough and it appears on public assistance, it will be, then the governor will request a presidential declaration. So that's kind of the time frame we're in, is getting all those assessments into Kentucky Emergency.
And the state just has to reach a threshold of $6.5 million, which is going to be very easily, it appears very easily reached. Matter of fact, they probably already have enough assessments reported at this point to have reached that threshold.
Sure, right.
Johnson County is going to be more, it'll be significant to what we have here. Yes. I mean, again, these are estimates and numbers out there, but it will be significant what we have sustained. State highway obviously has sustained a lot, as well as the county. From a public standpoint, our judicial center took on water as well. We had damage there. And as well as at least one of our recreational parks, and that's not counting individuals that obviously sustained damage. So it was a pretty significant event. Thanks, Gary. Any questions for Gary about?
So, in order to get private help, it has to be a national disaster.
It will have to be declared federally. I hope I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, if I say this. It will have to be declared federally.
About individual
assistance. It will have to be.
As far as what FEMA can come in and do, yes, Johnson County would have to have individual, what they call IA, disaster declared for Johnson County.
And keep in mind, they can declare one or the other or both. Public assistance or individual assistance. There's criteria that's calculated independent of one another. So Johnson County could get public assistance, but there may not be individual assistance. That's the reason we've been saying as repeatedly as we can and emphasizing it, that if people have had damage to the property, please get that reported, because Gary reported several properties that were impacted during this disaster. But obviously, the more that you have that are accurately reported, right, you know, that gives them numbers to work off of, because they have to hit thresholds too, yeah, in order to be able to get that individual assistance, or to be considered for individual assistance. Let me qualify that. Just because that thresholds may have been met, and even if they declare federally that individual assistance is to be provided, everyone's assistance will be determined on a case-by-case basis by FEMA. Just because, you know, you assessed it and this is what you had, obviously FEMA will evaluate those on a case-by-case. But again, we're still waiting to see whether or not, you know, what the federal level will do, and whether or not it's going to be public assistance, individual assistance, or both. Yeah. But still time. People still need to report though. I mean, even if you haven't, please, please still consider doing so. And the recommendation is made not only just a report, but obviously take as many pictures as you can take, keep all of your receipts, any documentation that you can possibly keep related to how you were affected, keep all of that, because that certainly, if there's assistance going forward, that will come into play in their evaluation. Correct? Correct. All right. Good question though, Tim. All right, we have a motion to approve the emergency management report.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Adams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jarrett. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on our agenda is Brenda Powers with Big Sandy Addis here to talk to us about some things that she needs the fiscal court's approval for related to the CDBG grant agreement. Just by way of reminder, this grant is what we announced at last month's meeting related to the W.R. Castle Volunteer Fire Department. The county was awarded a CDBG grant for their project, which is a $495,000 grant. There is a $50,000 or $55,000 match, correct? $55,000 match with this grant that W.R. Castle is making arrangements, obviously, to meet that match. But still, that's a pretty good deal to spend $55,000 and get to $495,000. I think it's a pretty good investment for them. It's obviously going to give them additional facilities down there to keep providing the services that they provide down there. As another note with this, the county will also be participating financially as well, because the county has $31,000 and thereabout in an account that was left from a previous CDBG grant, which is a Community Development Block Grant. And those funds can only be utilized on another CDBG grant. Well, this one is obviously a CDBG grant, so the county will be able to use that $31,000, and actually the funding agency has requested that we use that $31,000 to clear that account out. So W.R. Castle will be able to utilize that $31,000 that's in the account from a previous project for this project. And so that will help them obviously stretch those dollars even further, because they'll be able to use that money on the front end for some of those initial fees of architecture and permitting and things like that. The other thing I want to mention, I'm going to just say, as you look down the list, some of you already mentioned to me, well, what about some of these requirements that are on here? The county is the applicant, W.R. Castle is the recipient, but there's obviously requirements. It's a federal grant, so there's obviously a lot of requirements associated with that. Understand that there will be an interlocal agreement that will be drafted that will essentially assign the responsibilities of this grant to W.R. Castle. And Paul Burgess actually here as well. We had a meeting last week, yeah, last week wasn't it, in Campton, and we met with DLG down there about the grant. And so Paul was in that meeting as well as Paul Daniels, and so everyone understands that the requirements to comply with this, that those are going to be assigned through this interlocal agreement to W.R. Castle, because obviously it gets into what happens if you spend over, those type of things. So we're happy to obviously assist in being applicant for the grant, but W.R. Castle also understands the responsibility they have in making sure that the grant is taken care of as is required. Big Sandy Ad will be the administrator for the grant, so they're obviously going to be the check and balance to make sure everything stays the way it ought to be. But nevertheless, having said that, and I apologize for taking your time.
You're fine. Congratulations on receiving the grant. One of the first things we need to do, even though we discussed that we're not going to do it until 2019-2020 budget, is the county needs to agree that they will amend these $495,000 by resolution into your next year's budget and be responsible for cost overruns on the project. And as he said, we're going to do a legally binding agreement, and some of those responsibilities will be passed on to the fire department. Everything that we're doing here tonight needs to be, like in the minutes, because all of these things have to happen before we can get a release of funds on the project. So I guess we need a motion for that.
For all of them, or for one of them?
You want me to go through all of them and do one motion? That's fine if you want to.
I mean, Mike, can we go through all the items and then make one motion to approve them all?
Either way.
I mean, it'd probably be more efficient, probably just to go through them.
Okay, that's the first one. The second one is to adopt the KCDBG procurement code which I'm pretty sure is similar to what you have. It's just anything over $20,000 you're going to bid out, and otherwise you'll get competitive negotiations. But they ask that you do that through the life of the project. The next one is passing a residential anti-displacement resolution. That says that if anybody is displaced by this project and has to move, you all will find them other housing, but nobody on this project is being displaced. So
This is being, for clarification, it's being built on the same site as where the fire department is now. So no displacement is an issue here.
the county needs to agree to open a non-interest-bearing CDBG account for funds to go into. County needs to have an authorized signature form for whoever will sign the CDBG draw request. County needs to pass a fair housing resolution and publish in the local newspaper. This just encourages your local banks and real estate people to be more aware of fair housing and no discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, whatever. The county will do a self-evaluation on the courthouse for 504 accessibility, and I brought that form with me. And your courthouse, I'm pretty sure, is absolutely accessible, but they require this to be in the file as well. And you need to appoint a 504 coordinator for that, and that notice also has to be published in the paper. County will adopt Title VI Statement of Assurance and adopt DLG's policy of Title VI. I brought that with me, and that's just a policy of no discrimination based on race or national origin. County will name a Title VI advisory board and do a Title VI self-survey. We'll be happy to assist with the self-survey, and you can appoint your fiscal court if you wish, ever how you want to do it. If you want to wait till next month and think on that and do it, that's fine too. The county will adopt a Section 3 plan. I have that with me. It's a boilerplate form. It just says that you will try to hire locally and hire low-income people. And when we do this job, that is something that goes into the advertisement that lets people know the project's coming up, you know, come out and talk to them about a job. And the last thing is the administrative services contract with Big Sandy Ad for $20,000 to be paid from grant funds. Big Sandy Ad will take care of, they come here from DLG and they go through everything we have, financials, contracts, bidding, environmental. I'm working on the environmental right now, so this covers the whole gamut of everything we do. That's it.
All right, don't lose your place.
I won't.
We'll have some questions. So, which of these do we need? Do you need approval on? The seating sum? You mentioned that maybe this, the advisory board, some of those things.
You can go ahead and adopt it, and then you can nominate your committee next month.
Okay. Next question is, I thought in item 2 that we had discussed that this would actually not hit our budget until FY20.
Well, this will be this July, correct?
Right, which would be the FY20. That says 18-19.
Well, mine says 1920. I gave you the wrong copy.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
So just for you, everyone's here probably says 19 or 18-19. So you all know the funds actually will not hit our budget until after July 1, which will be FY20 budget year.
I sent a new resolution with the correct year, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So.
But anyway, just so you know,
Yeah.
we won't have to amend our budget in this current fiscal year for this. Next question I would have, Brenda, is related to item 6 on the authorized signatures. Who typically signs those draw requests? Is that basically
you need to be one of those signatures and whoever is available, because that's going to be who signs when I do a draw request to draw money down.
Is it like we normally do, where it's the treasurer typically is a signature on all checks?
It can be.
So I think that would probably be the same process here, would be
Okay.
reasonable. So I guess we would do, I guess, myself and then Betty as the
Fine.
signatories on that. And the item 8, I did not remember this from our meeting last week, but on the coordinator for 504 accessibility. Who is that typically
Um,
assigned to?
It can be anybody that works in the courthouse.
I mean, is that like somebody that's in charge of like the maintenance of the courthouse or something like that? Because
No,
an
it's somebody who, if somebody has a problem and with accessibility, or even that comes to find a job, you know, and they feel like they've been discriminated, somebody, maybe Regina could handle that.
Well, I think
Whoever's-
that's a fine recommendation. 504 accessibility.
Sure.
All right, so we have a recommendation, which I think seems reasonable. So we can approve the item 10. We can approve the advisory board, and then actually the establishment of the advisory board, and then actually name that at next month's meeting who will be on that
Right, that's
advisory
fine.
board. But typically, you have how many on that? Is it usually the
Um,
entire fiscal court? Is it just a?
At least 4,
Well, that'd be all of us then.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, if it's going to be all of us, then we can go ahead and take care of that this evening then. So you're asking for us to, we're not actually entering into the agreement,
The grant
the
agreement,
grant agreement, is that, are we
Yes.
approving that tonight? And
yes.
that is what, for y'all's reference, Mike, you've read the agreement,
I have.
and he's, I
I've already
think,
signed it.
he's already signed
Yeah,
the agreement.
Regina brought it to me, so, yeah.
So we already have, so our, the county's council has already read the agreement and has signed off on it. So we're approving the execution of that grant agreement. Make note there in item 2 that obviously we're going to be including the $495,000 in our FY20 budget. We will not have to amend the current budget. And then the rest is essentially acceptance of the requirements for the CDBG grant, but those will also be a part of our interlocal agreement. Mike, am I saying that correctly? We're going to essentially assign the responsibility of those to the W.R. Castle Fire Department
Right.
to comply with those.
Yeah, and we're working on that. So when we pull it down and tweak it a little bit, we'll send it to you, and then you can send it to your attorney to finish up the way you want it.
So if we're in agreement then that we would use the fiscal court as the advisory board there in item 10, and if the fiscal court also agrees in item 6 that myself and Betty would be the signatories on any draw requests, and remember those draw requests will come from Big Sandy Ad. They will obviously be, that's part of their administrative function, is they will obviously get those invoices from the contractors.
We'll be having a progress meeting at least once a month with the contractor, with the engineer, with the judge, if he's willing to come. And we'll go over those and do the math and be sure everything adds up. And then I'll prepare a draw, and then I'll bring it for signature. And that money comes in at least once a month. Can come in twice, but I try to keep it to once a month.
Okay.
So,
And then on item 8, the recommendation is that Regina be named the coordinator for the 504, any 504 accessibility requests or issues related to that. So I know it's a lot to digest in a short period of time, and obviously it's a federal grant, so there's a lot of documentation associated with it. But it's not anything new as far as that goes. With CDBGs have been done by the county for years, and so I guess at this point then we would ask for a approval of the items that are listed on in your packet related to the CDBG grant for W.R. Castle.
Question.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to be dumb here,
No.
but I am. Whereas, in the resolution it says, whereas Johnson County will be responsible for cost overruns associated with the project.
That's not a dumb question at all.
Okay.
That actually, any cost overruns will be assigned to W.R. Castle in the interlocal
It
agreement.
will be. It
Yes.
will be, okay.
Yeah, correct, Paul, we've already discussed that. We discussed that in our meeting last week. There'll be several, and once they pull the interlocal agreement together, AD is going to assist with that, getting a draft of that, then they've done this enough that they obviously can pull those items into that agreement that need to be assigned to W.R. Castle for them to comply with all of them. Because we're not having, as a fiscal court, we aren't having a direct oversight of this project. And so obviously we have to pass that responsibility on to those who will have direct oversight of the project. And again, we're not forcing anything on them. They're willing to accept that responsibility.
Yes.
He just went on record as saying yes.
That's good.
I think they're happy to have it.
I think they are too. We're happy that they got it. Absolutely. So I guess, having said that, you have 12 items in front of you that are related to the CDBG grant agreement related to the W.R. Castle Fire Department. So if those are acceptable to you, then we would ask for approval of those, inserting the individuals for items 6, 8, and 10. We entertain a motion to approve these documents.
I make the motion to approve the documents.
Motion to approve the documents as presented by Commissioner Adams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. Any other discussion? And if there's questions, please ask. I mean, it's not a problem. All right, I'm sorry, you have
Well, I was
questions?
just gonna say, I think the confusion, not confusing, but just getting your head that this was something that had to come through the county. It was something they couldn't go get on their own. It has to come through the county because it's federal, and basically they went through the right avenue, and we're handing it back to you. Now, here's your way you do your job, and I guess.
It has to go through a city or
Right,
a
but
county.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to go through a city or a county, and obviously the county was happy to do that. It certainly benefits the county greatly.
Sure.
Thank you all.
So we have a motion. Thank you, Brenda. We appreciate it very much. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for your patience working through that. Thanks, Brenda. Next item on the agenda is item 11. We are getting much more active in our solid waste functions as a county, and one of those is obviously trying to get regular meetings. Monica Spriggs is our solid waste coordinator. They've been to trainings recently for both solid waste and for Pride programs. She's had conversations with Jailer Rose about working, to try to get some additional support, maybe through community service and that type of thing. So we're going to have a much more active role in solid waste going forward. But in order to be able to do that, we do have a solid waste commission, which is comprised of 5 members. But we did have a vacancy on that commission, and it only seems to make sense that Ms. Spriggs would serve as one of those commission members. And so you have a copy of it in your packet, but on the 19th, I appointed her to the Solid Waste Commission. I did that timing-wise because they needed to meet to get those folks active in the discussions again. So I'm asking for you to affirm that action that I took on February 19th, appointing her as a voting member of the Solid Waste Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, the other one's been doing that anyway.
What's that?
The solid waste coordinator's always been a voting.
He wasn't a voting member, according to what we can find.
Not the, well, okay.
No, go ahead.
Monica wears 2 hats, right?
Right, Pride Coordinator and Solid Waste.
And the Pride coordinator has always been a voting member.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that was a natural fit then. I guess just for documentation, thanks, Mike, for that clarification. We didn't realize that. We knew that Solid Waste was not a voting member. We did not know that Pride was. Great, thank you. So anyway, well, I'd still like approval. Just, I guess, Mike, would that be the safest bet?
It's not going to hurt anything to have their approval.
Okay, then we would entertain approval of the motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you. Motion by Commissioner Gerald.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sayer. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, we do have a few items under other that you don't have on your agendas. One is related, I'm going back to the disaster discussion, and we already have one FEMA applicant agent that the Fiscal Court approved a couple of months ago, and that's Monica Spriggs, but we can have more than one. And so what I'm asking for approval this evening is to appoint Philip Keaton as a FEMA applicant agent also, so that he can work directly with FEMA if that involvement does actually come to pass on a formal basis. There's already been discussion with Kentucky Emergency Management and maybe some informal discussions related to federally. But I would like for you all to approve Philip as also a FEMA applicant agent to help us streamline the process and be more efficient in our reporting.
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Commissioner Adams, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Salyer. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, Tim. I told myself I was going to move you to the front of the agenda, and I apologize I didn't do that. Next on the agenda is a presentation of the rural secondary road plan. Tim Spencer with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. Obviously, Tim works out of the local Johnson County office out of Staffordsville. But you have a copy of that in your pack, or not in your packet. I hand you a copy prior to the meeting. So we'll let Tim go over that and explain this, because remember, three out of 4 of us are new, so anything you can share, we appreciate.
Basically what this is, with the rural secondary program out of Frankfurt, every year we come here and represent them to explain the program that delivers funds to you all. In this program, the funding is generated from a gas tax and motor fuel tax. And from that, they generate a certain amount of money per county that's to be used to maintain the rural secondary road system. This year, the anticipated allotment for Johnson County is $1,167,610. Now, out of this allotment, which is actually $62,034 less than last year. So, like everyone else, there's always budget restraints, and it hits us and hits you all too. So that's that much less money to use this year. Now, along those lines, we have to use some of that money to maintain our current road system, which is considered rural secondary. And in Johnson County, that's roughly 80 miles of roadway maintenance. And for that amount, we're going to be requesting that $480,900 will be used just for state roadway funds. Now, another expense that comes out of that goes straight to the county judge for his expenses for promoting this program, which is $2,400, which is also less than generally given in the past. Now, out of that money also will come a flex fund that the county gets to spend where they want to. So you'll generate a list of roads you'd like to spend this money on and how. And that's typically, for this year, is going to be $149,732. And in saying so, that leaves $534,578 to be spent on road projects here in the county. Now, the listing you have in front of you there is I've got 3 roadways that I'm wanting to spend the money on for repairs. Typically, you know, asphalt goes up every year. Looks like it's going to be higher this year than it was last year. So I'm hoping even these funds will be enough to do the repairs I've got listed on here. Typically, they're resurfacing projects, and one of them is a patching project. And this is just to kind of show you all what we were hoping to do with this. And like I said, you're going to have funds that you'll be able to dictate what you want to do with also this year coming.
And Tim dropped this by a few weeks ago, and we talked, so, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but just for clarification, obviously all this is related to state roads. They have primary roads, and then they have rural secondary roads. Yeah. This is related to what they spend on rural secondary roads that are state roads, with the exception of the flex funds, which the county can request from the state. We can request from the state what we would like to use those funds for.
Typically for asphalt projects.
Yeah.
It's been used every year.
And so when you take out when it leaves the $534,000 and change there, those remaining 3 projects, items 4, 5, and 6, essentially that takes that remaining balance of $534 to do those 3 projects.
And there's a map listed there within your packet too that shows that all the roads highlighted in yellow is what's considered the rural secondary road system. That does include like 23, Route 3, 172. Those are the major roads that are funded other ways for asphalt projects. So I mean, it spreads out throughout the county, and every year we try to look at our program every year. What's the best place to put this money to? And we don't hit everywhere, but we try to do our best with it. And
they go out, obviously, and they evaluate the roads, and they try to obviously make it go as far as they can and get the worst, I guess, scenarios to try to keep these roads in as good a condition as possible. And I failed to ask, is this typically something that I guess the fiscal court approves your proposed plan? Yeah,
just the way we showed here, and we approve the projects and go forward from there. Okay. Typically in the past, sometimes the judge would have a list already ready that he would like to see asphalt for, but that can be done at your leisure, and the list can be turned into Frankfurt.
Okay. Do you have any questions about Tim's presentation on the rural secondary roads?
I've got two questions, and really just for my learning, just
Sure.
as a.
I'll try to answer it.
Yeah, just these three places that were picked, is that just from assessment of this?
From assessment from previous roads we paved in the past, these are the ones that went out and looked at and said, these are the ones I need to look at this year that has something done to them.
Okay.
Usually, you know, a typical roadway project, when you resurface something, will last 7 to 10 years, barring heavy traffic, coal, lumbering that destroys the road. So usually I try to do the whole county within a 7-year period. You know, try to get every road that I can, but some of them need to be done quicker because of the heavy traveling.
So it's just your assessment over the.
Yeah, it's my
You just know
assessment.
this, okay, that's what I said two questions, and that was such a good answer, I forgot my second question.
Well, just keep thinking.
Oh, I do know what I was gonna say. I still, I hate to say struggle, but that, what's considered county, what's considered secondary. There's this little, you know what I mean? I still have a little bit like Hammond. To me, that's a county road. But here, today we're calling it secondary. Is that correct?
Well, Hammond is actually county and state road.
That's my little confusion. And that's just gonna be a learning curve for me.
Yeah,
I
that's,
presume that,
you
but
know,
that's
you can
why,
get
when I
with
seen
your
Hammond, I was like,
You can get with your county road program or director and talk with him if he needs to get you a map showing you where the county and state roads dictate where they start and stop. That'll get you a good idea of where everything happens, because
that little
basically,
overlap kind of throws me just a little
yeah,
bit.
see, we would handle, we actually call Kentucky 3390. And it starts at the junction of 40 on the top of Spicy and goes all the way down to the end of state maintenance. And usually at every end of county road that says the end of state maintenance, that's as far as we go, even though the county road will go further.
Right. And that's the situation down there. That's my district. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Tim related to the report? We would entertain a motion to approve, hang on a second. I think we went too long. Betty, how do you, the tape just ran out, so just keep
Just
going.
flip it over.
Flip it over? All right. Been a while since I've used
I was getting ready to
cassettes.
say, what do you do now? What do we do now?
Buy a new cassette.
All right. So now we will entertain a motion to approve the rural secondary road program as presented.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Adams. Second.
Second.
Thanks, Tim. You spelled Mike, yeah. Second by Commissioner Sager. All in favor? Any opposed? You thought I would know what to do with the cassette.
I didn't either.
I appreciate y'all's time.
Tim, thanks for the help. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item is an item that is not on the agenda, but I gave you a copy of it, and I'll do my best to explain what it is. It's a resolution. First of all, let me say this. The resolution does not obligate the county to anything financially. What the resolution is related to is we're obviously putting a great deal of emphasis on trying to create opportunities for economic development. And this is a resolution related to a sewer line extension project that has been discussed in the past, and Bob Packus here, General Manager of City Utilities. It's been discussed in the past, but we've re-engaged that discussion in the last few weeks. I met with Bob Pack and also met with Mayor Runyon, and we've all had a discussion about this particular project. And what this project does is, if we can make it happen, what it does, it obviously allows for opportunity for expansion and economic development. It also will help the Honey Branch wastewater plant, which is up at Johns Creek. As you can see by the resolution, it's only operating about 30% capacity right now. But yet our downtown, what I would call downtown, or the river plant, is running at full capacity. And so it only makes sense that we can see opportunity for growth if we can get more volume into the Honey Branch wastewater plant at Johns Creek. And so what this resolution is, it essentially says that the fiscal court supports, in partnership with the City of Paintsville and Paintsville Utilities and the Paintsville-Johnson County Economic Development Authority, to support the development of this sewer project, which will basically go from, as it's now being looked at, and Bob, you and Regina, correct me if I get off base here, it basically would start at the health department in that area and would actually go out to 460, from 460 over to 23, and 23 south to Hager Hill, and at Hager Hill into West Van Lake, where there's already a main line that goes into the Honey Branch plant. And so what that would do is that would actually change the flow of some existing lines, which would take some pressure off of, free up some capacity on the existing river plant. But it also creates opportunity for a couple of package plants that are in place along 23 that could come off package plants, since we all know that that's the more we can get onto commercial sewer, the better off. And those folks who have package plants generally want to be on commercial sewer. But it also creates opportunity for development in the Taze Branch area and anything along South 23, which would also include even some potential development along the Dawkins Trail there in the Callista area. Because there's folks who have expressed interest in the past of developing some things on the Dawkins line, but they've been limited by that opportunity because they've not been able to be able to have public sewer. So this is something that would even provide possible opportunity there for folks to connect for development economically and even on from a tourist aspect. But this is based upon, again, the plant on the river is currently at or over capacity right now. The plant at Honey Branch, which is at Johns Creek, is only at 30%, and they actually could use more volume to be able to operate more efficiently. And so this project would help, obviously, to create some economic development opportunities for the reasons that I just laid out. I think the thing I want for you to note is in the first paragraph is this is a partnership project with a lot of folks. This is the city of Paintsville, this is the city utilities, and this is also the Paintsville-Johnson County Economic Development Authority, which is something that is an arm of the Chamber of Commerce. The reason that group will also be a partner in this effort is I'm hoping that next week we have a planned meeting for the Economic Development Authority to ask that group to apply for a grant that could help pay for some of the engineering costs associated with the sewer line project. And the particular funding agency for that grant seems to prefer that the applications come from an economic development authority rather than a county or a city or a utility, because the economic development authority brings essentially all those stakeholders to the table at the same time. And so if the economic development authority will approve that application, then we could possibly get some funding for engineering on this particular project to help move it down the road a little bit faster. Because as I'm learning quickly, sometimes the wheels of government don't turn hardly as fast as we would like for them to. So we're trying to find ways that we can help expedite these projects like this to create opportunity for this county. So again, no obligation financially to the county at all with this resolution. This just essentially says that we, like these other proposed partners, see a need for economic development opportunities to be created, and this sewer line extension project would help facilitate that. I will ask Bob and Regina if I missed anything or any key points that I should have.
Real well. Okay.
So having said that, we would certainly entertain a motion to approve the resolution. And we'll, by the way, the mayor is putting the same resolution before city council in about an hour for their consideration and approval as well, to continue to further this partnership of moving this project along.
I make a motion we approve the resolution.
I have a motion by Commissioner Salyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. Any other discussion on it? I know it's a lot of information, but we'll certainly take time to answer any questions.
Well, with approving this resolution, do we need to go ahead and authorize you to, like, if anything comes in, to go ahead and?
We don't have anything right now because the first step will be if the Economic Development Authority applies for the grant for the engineering. And then at some point in the future, as the different funding sources are identified to hopefully put this plant, actually get it in motion, then we'll be coming back, because then we'll be seeking funding from a lot of federal agencies, EDA, maybe, I don't know, I'm losing my acronyms. But ARC.
KIA.
There you go.
CDBG.
Yeah, so all those we'll be seeking, so that's obviously a process in and of itself, but it's a great question. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. I think that's I think it's a step in the right direction for us to hopefully create some economic development opportunities going forward. The last item that I had on the agenda also is related to a grant, and I apologize, I did not make copies, but it's not gonna cost the county anything. So I'll get that out front. I failed, this came in this afternoon, and this is a grant. It's called an ARC Flex E, the letter E, grant program. And this is a program that's in partnership with the Department of Local Government, ARC, which is the Appalachian Regional Commission, but it's administered by the Center for Rural Development out of Somerset, which is obviously facilitates and administers a lot of projects down there. The reason I'm bringing this up to you tonight, and it came rather quickly, is the proposals are due by the 22nd of this month. And again, we're just applying, so there's no cost to the county, to apply. What this grant would do is it's up to $10,000. It does have a match with it if we should get awarded, but the match can be provided with in-kind through administrative services by Regina. And so it would not cost us anything even if we award the grant, but the maximum would be $2,000. But what the grant is for is that we've had discussions recently with folks with economic development, and what they are telling us is that there's a lot of economic development information already in place, but what we don't have is we do not have a comprehensive community development plan. And that's obviously a long term to basically say that we really have not maybe assessed our county in some time, which also includes the city. We've not assessed it and done a study of it to determine where we need to develop and what areas we need to develop. Do we need to develop in tourism? Do we need to develop in restaurants? Do we need to develop in all the areas that kind of make a community whole? That wants people obviously to, that helps people to make a decision on where they live and where they do business. And so this grant is up to $10,000. What it would allow us to do is, if we get the grant, is we could hire a consultant to help us put together, which they would obviously pull all the stakeholders from the community in and gather information. They would put together a comprehensive community development plan that says, here are the areas that you need to target, here's what you're doing well, here's some of your areas that you could stand to improve in. Regina, I'll let you.
We'll also have a focus on collaboration between all the entities in our county and our city working together.
This will be in partnership again with the city of Paintsville. They're supporting this. I talked to the mayor today about this. He's in support of that. And again, this comprehensive community development plan will be supportive of economic development. Because it's one thing to recruit a business to come to your community, but part of that recruitment process, they want to know what else you have in your community. What about your schools? What about your tourism? What about your restaurants? What about your shopping? They want to know the whole thing about what's your internet. All those things that are key to making decisions for folks to place business in your community. It's one thing, obviously, to talk about site and utilities, but it's another thing to look at it in a comprehensive way and see, well, where are we in all these other areas as a community. So again, if we should be awarded the grant is a $10,000 grant for us to be able to obtain services from a consultant to help us put this plan together. It does have a 20% match, but the match does not have to be in cash. The match can be with administrative services that Regina can provide, that we can document, that would not actually cost the county any money for the grant. So it's a Flex E grant through the Appalachian Regional Commission is what the grant is called. I like it in the sense that it's my kind of time frame because, again, I told you the wheels of government tend to move slow at times. Projects are to be completed within 6 months. So I'm really happy about that, because that means that if we can get awarded the grant, we're going to have a comprehensive community plan in 6 months. Correct?
From May. They'll award it in
Well,
May.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, if they award us in May, then obviously by the end of the year, we could have one of those plans in our hands by the end of the year. So anyway, I apologize. I meant to make copies of that, and it just happened late this afternoon. But we certainly would appreciate your consideration in approving me to make application for that grant. Again, it's not costing anything. If we get awarded the grant, then we'll come back to the fiscal court with how that we will provide the 20% match through administrative services and not actually 20% cash, which amounts to $2,000 for the grant, of course.
Make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Adams to approve applying for the Flex E grant. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. And I'll see that you get copies of this as well, so that you'll have that for your records of the details of that grant that was put together. That's all that I have on the agenda for others. Any of the commissioners have anything?
Judge, can I speak?
You sure can. Do you want to come up here?
No.
All right.
Everybody can hear
Will
me.
you just stand there?
I want to just say thank you to the commissioners and you, especially Judge Mike Endicott, doing some legal work. But this grant for our fire station has been something we've tried to do for the last 5 years. Regina, when she was at the Big Sandy ad, applied for us. We didn't get funding the previous time. We worked at it, we stayed at it. A lot of the volunteers put a lot of time and effort into it. It's something for our community, and we're very grateful that we've got it. We greatly appreciate you all administering it for us. But anybody that's at the fire station knows when Gary was the original fire chief, you know, we built it in '81. It was a small structure. We don't have much meeting rooms when we put 30 men inside there, or if we want to have another fire department come over for training. It's just a small quarters. You know, we've had to turn down stuff to do regional or county-wide because we don't have the room. So this is going to greatly benefit us, people in the community, whether it be Cub Scouts or somebody else wanting to have meetings in there. We just don't have the facilities. This is going to help everybody, and it's just not for the fire department. So I want to just say thank you for administering it and leadership and help take care of it for us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I know you've got full support of this district court.
Well, I appreciate it.
For your project and any project that's related to our volunteer fire departments.
Well, the only thing we're trying to do is improve. You know, we have one of the lowest ISO ratings in the county. And, you know, when people are moving into the community, whether it's a federal prison job or whatever, first thing they ask, what's your insurance rates? And, you know, and we're just here. It's all one big thing, is whether it's a community development, bringing jobs in or whatever else. You know, we're there to help.
And when he says they put a lot of time in on it, they actually had to go do door-to-door surveys of the people within their district.
And the surveys was random, and it was picked by a computer. We didn't get to pick our friends down the neighborhood. They told us exactly who we had to go see and what the house was, and you know, randomly picked. The computer randomly picked, and the volunteers spent, you know, 3 weekends going door to door. You know, sometimes they thought we was collecting money or something. They would answer the doors or whatever, but we was out there trying to help them.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it very much. Is there anything else from the floor this evening? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motions or second?
Second.
Second. Stand adjourned.